Hey guys, welcome back to the Attract and Stand Out podcast. I'm your host, Darlene Hawley, and I am thrilled for your guest today. I have my amazing friend, Jackie Dominas, which I think I said her name right this time. Did I do it right? Yes.
You
See?
did, yeah.
So Jackie is a women's empowerment coach. Jackie's a women's empowerment coach and yoga teacher, and she helps ambitious, big-hearted women who are exhausted, overwhelmed, and stressed find an easier, happier, and balanced life. Through navigating her own life experiences, she's learned the way we approach adulting and what's weighing us down from showing up as our best selves. She's worked with over 100 women, helping them see this too. She empowers women to reclaim their inner guidance system that was given to them at birth so that they can manage their busyness of life while making peace with their bodies, calming their minds, and creating time for those closest to their hearts, which I absolutely love your mission, Jackie. I think it's so amazing what you do to bring women to that beautiful place where they can just take care of themselves and they can actually spend time with people and do the things that they actually want to do and what they love, which is a lot of what my mission is as well. So I'm so excited to talk to you today and share your story. How are you?
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Oh, I'm so happy to be here. I'm doing well, doing really well. Yeah.
Yay. Well, welcome. I know that you have an amazing story and you have an amazing journey that you've been on. And I would love for you to share with us just a little bit about like how you started your own business and what was kind of like the driving force from leaving like the work that you were doing beforehand and coming in and stepping into this.
Okay. So great. I'm so happy you're doing this podcast, by the way, because I love listening to people's origin stories. It really motivates me to see like, it's for most people, it's not an overnight success, which is exactly what my business hasn't been, just overnight success. Some things have been super easy, but to answer your question of how I got started. So way back when I was a dietitian, I went to school to be a dietitian, but I knew that was what I wanted to do. And I always wanted to work with women and help them navigate their inner landscape in terms of first starting like with their physical body. But then as I started to work with clients, and I also was a personal trainer, we were only at the tip of the iceberg. There was so much underneath that was causing their behaviors or their reactions to things. And I also didn't really want a boss. I knew that. I had an entrepreneur spirit from the beginning. And so pretty quickly, I started to work for myself. And then the business has shifted and changed over the years. I fell into yoga and started to work with the mind-body component and really calming the mind, because we really start with the chatter that happens to all of us, whether it be in our personal lives or our business lives, and then tapping into merging that with like the wisdom of the body. So that being really the cornerstone of how I work with women now is to really be mindful of the external world and all of the influences that we get out there, and then really tap into, okay, well, what's right for me and what do I want? Like what's really important to my heart and what's maybe getting in the way of really going for it or really getting there. So as I've navigated working with nutrition coaching, I had a long journey with infertility, and I really dove into learning about not only working with like the mind, but then the body as a tool of not just like how I move my body and how I feed my body, but how I like talk to my body and how the thoughts that I think, and overcoming fears and really being more conscious as I do these things, and really going for my desires and really standing up for that. And then so as I've worked with that with myself, and I've seen a shift and a change with the way that the results that my clients are getting, the sustainable results that they're getting and what they're learning about themselves. So it's been a really cool process to see it evolve. And the work that I do with clients just feels effortless now, because it's exactly aligned with, I think, what I was born to do and be put on this planet to do right now.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so funny how like you mentioned that you've always had this entrepreneurial spirit, like you knew even before you had a job that like you wanted to kind of work for yourself. And it's interesting how we kind of come to finding what it is that we want to do, because a lot of it is going through our own process and just figuring out what we want as human beings, as moms, as women, whatever you want to call it. And then you were able to bring that to fruition for your clients too. Like you're like, okay, these are the things that I've experienced and what I've gone through. And now because you've done the work, you're able to help your clients now, which I think is really awesome.
Yeah. There's a lot of times we can look at things in two ways, like the light or the dark way, or like even like the really murky times that we really would prefer not to go through, but those are opportunities for our own spiritual growth as a human. So looking at, like, of course I would never wish like infertility on anyone, but if I hadn't went through that process, I most likely wouldn't have really landed in my solid ground of the work that I do today. So I'm grateful for it in that way. And being able to pivot and know like, okay, I don't want to strictly do nutrition coaching anymore. I need to shift it and change it. And when you're your own boss, like that's what you can do. Yeah.
And especially in times right now, I know so many of my clients and prospects that I've been talking to, like they're in this place where they're ready to pivot their business between COVID and I think just a lot of things that we're all learning about ourselves during this time. Like people are like, do I really love the work that I've been doing? Do I want to keep doing it the way that I've been doing? And it's like the perfect time to kind of pivot your business and make it your own so that you can actually show up and do it the way that you want to do it. And like you mentioned, like you're your own boss. So that's like the beautiful thing I think about being an entrepreneur is we get to choose like, okay, we're going to pivot here. And I actually want to lean this more this direction and do this because it's like lighting me up and it's setting me on fire right now. And what I was doing, like, I still love that too. Like, it's still pretty cool, but it's not necessarily where I'm at today. So I love that we get to kind of grow with our business and change things up so we don't have to do the exact same thing over and over again.
Yeah. And I'm working with my clients and even through COVID and listening to you is that like things have like being, especially with the sheltering at home, like everything rose to the surface. Like the things that might've been a low grade stress or a low grade annoyance in our lives, like we're like, here we are, deal with me now, like change it if it's not working. And so even though it felt intense, it really accelerated the process like a big catalyst. And to be able to pivot and then to tap into our own heart and know, is it a pivot that I want, or is it a distraction from what I'm doing too? And I had to navigate those waters too, of knowing, like, am I pivoting because I'm afraid, or that it's hard, or that it's, all the different things that can happen with distraction, or is it really pivoting and learning of like sitting with yourself and knowing like, no, this is like what my heart wants, and this is what lights me up and feeds me and gives me energy. So it's been a really cool process to see. Yeah.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that's something that a lot of us go through, is wondering, am I doing this because I'm not giving what I've been doing 100% and I'm not getting the numbers or the results that I wanted, and I'm going to pivot as like an excuse, like, oh, well, this wasn't working for me, so I'm going to do this now instead? Or are we pivoting because like it's actually the right thing to do and the right time for that? So I love that that was something you mentioned. Is there yourself, was there something like
Yeah. It's and it's something that not only with our business but with our lives too, to work with, like when we were born, we had this innate wisdom, this intuition that we're kind of conditioned out of a little bit, like because we're moving so fast these days, like life's so busy, and that we use the like brilliant mind to make decisions, but we forget to really drop into the body and to the heart to say like, okay, well, what's really real? And as you learn to, and this is what I work with clients, is to really sit and learn of the sensations of the body and what feels like yes or a truth in your body versus not, and then trusting that and then going for it. And so it's been a really amazing process to see that wisdom of the body come forward, and I use it all the time, and it's really been pretty amazing and incredible that how right it is every time. If I listen.
Yep. I'm exactly the same way. I always say that I need to listen to my gut because I trust my gut way more than I trust my brain sometimes. Like I can feel into it, and it's like that gut and heart connection, right? Versus sticking in our heads where we stay like super safe, or we over question ourselves, or we don't do something because we're afraid. But when we listen to our gut, at least for myself, I know I can feel into it and I'm like, okay, this is the right choice for me. This is what I'm supposed to be doing, versus just responding or reacting in that moment and not giving myself the time to really listen to my body.
Yeah. 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 Cause our minds can, they can lead us down just such a rabbit hole sometimes, especially when overwhelm and busyness comes up. Like, and it's a process of just learning more about yourself, like where you fall into, like, do you like tornado out and just try to do all the things where you get paralyzed and you freeze, or what are your things? And realizing that, and it's all okay. There's nothing wrong. It's just like bringing more awareness to your patterns and your habits, and then learning how to go underneath. Like I like think about the ocean a lot of times. Like the ocean can be really turbulent and wild or calm, but way underneath, it's always calm underneath there. So it's like, how can we do that with ourselves and really get into a place that we can discern of what's right and what's wrong for us?
Yeah. And it gives us the ability to just like stand in our truth and show up as ourselves, and not to have to try to be something or do something that's not authentic to who we are and what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So.
Because then it feels hard. It feels really hard when you do that. And I think that that's something that some entrepreneurs fall into, with like, well, I got this advice, or I think I should do it, you know, all the shoulds, like I should do it this way, when it's like you're really bumping your head against the wall and making it a lot harder than it needs to be, because you're not listening to yourself. You're trusting.
It's that saying, like, you can't put a square peg into a round hole, or whatever it is. Like when you're like trying to do something that doesn't fit, and if you're trying to create a business that doesn't work for you, or it's not fitting with your lifestyle or what you're trying to do, sometimes it's really hard to make it successful because you're fighting it somehow, or a piece of the, like one of the pieces to the puzzle is missing. And you're like, but why can't I do this? Like, why is it not working? It's working for her and it's working for him, and they're doing the same thing I'm trying to do. But it's that going back to yourself and realizing, like, I'm trying to do something the wrong way, or this isn't the right way for me. Like I talk about this a lot with like marketing, even like, if just because somebody is marketing one way and you try to market the same way that they're doing because it looks like they're being successful because they've got, you know, a bunch of likes or a bunch of hearts and comments, and then you try and do it, but you don't actually enjoy doing it. And it's like, you know, maybe you're creating a video and maybe you don't like being on camera and it's making you nervous and you're not showing up the way that you need to. I'm like, if that doesn't feel good, don't market on video right now. Like, but if you love to write, go write. Or if you love to do one-on-one conversations like we're having right now, like do those. Don't make yourself do something that feels really uncomfortable and really hard. Like find what works for you and do that. And that goes back to trusting your gut, right?
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with like trying it out, because sometimes you don't know until you know.
Yeah.
And like when I'm like coaching and talking to, you know, leading workshops and things, and I always say, like, I want you to take this and experiment and really run it through your system and take it or leave it. Like, just because it's worked for me, that doesn't mean that it's going to work for you in the same way.
Yeah.
And then the same thing with your business, like just because it works for one person. And like, it's really interesting, like the lens that we see things through, because like right now, especially like we're all like in the internet world, and a lot of us have the internet businesses, we can look and like only see this one part and really make a story up about that it is really working for somebody else, when really that just takes away from our time and our energy when we're comparing to somebody else. So it's just like realign and come back, like what really works for me.
Yeah, no, that's so true, because I just read an article recently, I forget where it was from, but it was talking about how some of the bigger influencers that look like they have these huge audiences, and you assume they're just making, you know, billions of dollars in their business. And when it came back down to it, like they were actually not making any money in their business. They were really great at driving engagement, but they were not actually closing sales, which I thought was interesting, because we look at that from the outside so easily and we're like, oh, they're so successful and they're doing everything right. What am I doing wrong? Or what's different about, you know, the way that I'm doing stuff? And in reality, like they're not doing it right either. They just have a big engagement following, where some of us that have smaller audiences, we're actually making money with that smaller audience, because we're talking specifically to our ideal clients, not to the masses. We're actually, niche down enough to where we're getting our ideal clients in front of us, and we're actually messaging in the right way, and we're talking to them just like we need to, so they get what we do, and they're like, oh, you solved the problem that I have, let me hire you. So I thought that was interesting, though, because we give so much credit to some of these influencers because they're the vanity metrics is what I like to call it. Like, they look really great, but at the end of the day, like, they're not doing anything with it.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you said that, because my blog post that will be coming out this coming week is about, I took a social media cleanse just the last month in August. And so part of my second teacher training I took like way back in 2009, it was a 3-week in-house. We were in Mexico. And there was a bunch of different guidelines that we were to follow when we were there. And one was to not read any gossip magazines, no media at all when we were there. So we were really in this like bubble, which you don't want to do all the time, especially with the news and everything's going on these days. However, social media and gossip magazines was something. At the time I was reading a bunch of gossip magazines. I was in my younger 20s. And so, but I didn't realize the impact that it had on me. And then also now with social media, I was looking at how much time I was spending, and then mindlessly scrolling, or even comparing and contrasting, and all the stuff that comes up with social media.
Yeah. And
I looked into this of like, I was able to be so much more productive with my writing. I read a book, and I was having conversations with currently, actually, I just finished another teacher training, and he's an influencer who the person that I had taken the teacher training from, and he was speaking to this, and he said, the people that are out there that have all these followers, and this is specific to the yoga industry too, is that they're really making money from advertisements, not necessarily like getting students in their classes and their workshops, and really developing that relationship with people as a human, with a smaller group. I found that to be so valuable throughout the course of my whole career. Like, word of mouth has always been my biggest driving marketing force.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like 70% of my business comes from referrals. So
love up on your clients. Like, that would be like the biggest thing, is like, even when you're starting out and you have that newsletter list and it's not very big, and you feel like, oh, is anybody reading this? Or like, there's only my mom and my sister and my aunt and like one new person on there, but like, love up on them, and then it grows. Like, it takes some time to build these things. Yeah. But the more, like, people can feel that. Just like when you were saying, it's like, if you're not aligned and you're kind of like really like struggle busing through doing something, there's an energetic difference that I've seen time and time again that changes the energy that we put into anything. Like, even if we take it outside of like a business context, but if somebody tells you yes to go with you on something and they don't want to go, and then they're in this like, crap mood the whole time, like, you can feel that. Like, it's so palpable, and like, your clients can feel that. So if you're like, oh, like, dismissing them because you only have 10 people on your newsletter list, like, there's that, they're going to feel that. So like, really every time I write, I really try to envision and channel everybody that's on my list. Yeah.
I was just talking to a prospect a couple weeks ago, and she had 100 people on her list, and she was like very negative during our conversation about those 100 people. And I was like, that's actually really good. Like, after talking to her, like, she had a very targeted list. Like, those 100 people that were on her list were all pretty much ideal clients. They weren't just like a bunch of extra people that didn't really care or didn't matter. It wasn't a bunch of friends and family that like helped her out in the beginning, and they weren't even her target clients. I'm like, that's 100. I'm like, imagine those 100 people standing in a room if you were speaking on a stage. Imagine that. Like, that's a lot of people. And even if you serve, 5% of them, that's a good amount of clients. So like, I had to shift her mindset a little bit about like the expectation, because I think we're so used to seeing people like, oh, I have 2 million people on my email list. And I'm like, that's cool, but like, there's no way that 2 million people have bought from you. So, I mean, it can be a numbers game. Yes. Especially if you have like group programs and different things, like the bigger your list, the easier those numbers can equate. But especially if you're doing like one-to-one coaching, or if you have a smaller business where you don't need a ton of clients each year to create the income that you need for your family, like those 100 people, like if 10 of those people sign up, if you have a 10% rate, like that's 10 clients. That's amazing. So it's all a shift of mindset.
They know X amount of people. Like you work with those 10 and like, imagine if that just like, it starts to multiply. Like if you really, if you're really consistent and loving them up and doing good work with them and honoring them, because that would, it would feel great if you're like, oh, she's on my list, but my list isn't big enough. It goes back to that, like really comparing, like it's just such a waste of time to compare yourself to anybody.
Yes. Amen. Like stop comparing to everybody else because you can only do it your way.
Right. Yes. And it's definitely, there's a time and a place to reach out for support, right? Like there's time for like to up level and to work with a coach or to work with a mentor, or to do a program, but not always, right? So it's like you do want sometimes some external advice or somebody to mirror back to you or help you work through your stuff. Like that, I found that to be really important. Like I was looking up to my coaches or looking up to people that I actually knew were doing like good business and saying, okay, well, let's look and talk about their origin story. Like where did they start? Who did they work with? And then I kind of followed that model, but then found my own coaches to work with and was pretty selective and really discerning about, am I reaching for the shiny star thinking that this coach is going to make my business grow? Or am I really wanting to learn something more about business so I can be more efficient and more effective and reach more people?
Yeah, no, so important, especially when you're looking at like who you want to have come alongside you to support you and help you grow and like step into what you want to become. Like, and we all have different reasons we hire a coach or we have a mentor that we look up to and that we watch what they're doing and what their what their current models are or what not for their business. Like it's important to see like, where am I at right now? What do I need to move forward? Do I actually need someone to hold my hand and hold me accountable? Do I need somebody to tell me what to do and kind of give me more strategic steps to do? And sometimes we don't know what we need. So that's why it's good to like talk to different mentors, coaches, and see what's going to be the best fit for us so we can see what kind of support we need. And then we can choose wisely, because you're right. We don't always need a coach. We don't always need that person there. Sometimes I actually encourage my clients, like especially after we finish working with each other, like to take a break before if they decide they want to work with somebody else later on, or if they want to even sometimes re-sign with me. Like it's good to just be on your own for a little bit and see what you can handle on your own without having someone there to, I don't know what the right word is, like because you want that support, like you want support, but you also want to know that like you can get your own feeding and like you can figure it out for yourself without always having to have that support too.
Yeah, I felt that because I think of like with like my clients, like baby birds, like teaching them to fly, like to get up and like go and do it on their own. And part of the work that I do and the work that you do is really teaching people to do it on their own and trust themselves without needing somebody to like lead the way. Like, because as an entrepreneur, you're the CEO, you're the boss. So like being able to really trust yourself and trust that you know the right next step. And like we're conditioned to always ask and second guess ourselves and to say, is this right or this wrong? But when you have that safety net that's gone, and it's like, it's up to you. Like it's up to you to make this decision. And like that allows you to up level in your business.
Yeah, no, exactly. I love the analogy you gave of the baby bird, because that's absolutely perfect. Like you raise them, you nurture them, you help them get to a certain spot, and then you're like, you throw them up in the air and you make sure they can fly. And like sometimes they stumble a little bit. We actually had a baby bird in my backyard probably about a month ago now, and they had built a nest in our on our patio. And so we saw the baby bird be born and we heard him chirping like crazy, and the mom and dad were super protective, even though they were on our porch. So we weren't even really allowed to sit on our porch for a while because they would start circling us. But we happened to be outside on a Saturday evening, and the baby bird was, all of a sudden we saw this bird hopping around our yard, and the mom and dad birds were up on the fence, and they were cheering him on, chirping at him. And he was hopping around and he'd kind of flutter up a little bit and then he'd fall back down. But then like 20 minutes later, he was gone. Like he figured it out. And his parents like didn't go down there and support him and hold his hand anymore. Like they were watching from a distance and they were still there. But he figured it out, or he, I don't know what it was, figured it out and got up in the air, and all of a sudden they were gone. And I was like, oh, and then they like literally left our backyard. They don't even come back to the nest, which I never knew. I'm like, now we have this empty nest in our yard. But I think that's a great analogy for coaching. It's like being like supporting, nurturing, letting them grow, and then let them out of the nest.
Yeah.
Trust in themselves to do it on their own. I love that.
Yeah.
So yeah. What do you feel like with your business has been one of the hardest things for you to overcome? Like if you were to look back at like some of the different things that you've gone through, is there anything that you wish you would have known quicker, or you wish you would have done different, or that you learned a lot from because you had to overcome it?
That's a good question. I think there's two things that pop into mind, and one is aligned with what we're talking about, is really getting stuck in leading with like forgetting about myself and saying like, I'm going to take clients at all hours of the day and on the weekend. And especially when I was in the transition from doing like just nutrition based work to now more like spiritual life coaching work. And I was really attached to that identity and fear, gosh, like so much fear of like, I've always been kind of a black sheep and really kind of taking a leap and really like okay,
putting yourself out there.
yeah. I just like spent my, that's what I did for college and all, and this is more stable. And anyway, so, but I think because that fear of not trusting myself, I fell into doing things that again weren't aligned with what I knew, like what was really like expansive for me and made me happy. So I think I struggled a little bit there. And then also with that, because I wasn't 100% in, like I still had a foot in like the nutrition bucket, I still had clients coming and kind of tapping, it's like when you commit to something, or like I think about this with like back to my personal training days, somebody said they want to run a marathon, but then the next week they like sprain their ankle. And so they're like, well, what the heck,
Yeah.
But it's like, it's really the universe saying, well, would you really want this? Like you're initiated here. And so when you have clients that come to you, if you're pivoting and then you're like, well, shoot, that's not really what I do now, but I'm going to take that client because of the fear that I'm not going to be able to build, but that only keeps you from really doing the thing that you want to do.
Yeah.
So once I claimed it and really said, okay, this is it, clients started coming.
Yeah.
So that's like, I guess the biggest takeaway is, one of the biggest takeaways at least, was like really going with my gut and taking the leap and like seeing fear and be like, okay, I know you're trying to keep me safe because this is what I've known, but I also really truly know that this is no longer my path. I need to pivot into this.
Yeah. That's, I like that you said, claim what you want and just kind of like take the leap. It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes is, leap and the net will appear. So often like we're afraid to do it because we're not sure what to expect. But when we actually go through the process and we do it, like 9 out of 10 times, like it may not come together perfectly immediately, but like the path can be paved the way that we need it to create the business that we want, or to create whatever it is that we're working on at that time. So I love that you just said to claim it and just to take that leap. So important, because I think so many times we sit there on that fence, right? And we're so fearful to take the leap and we don't get a chance to move forward, especially like with your example, like we're taking clients that are from our old niche before we had pivoted, and we're saying yes to things that don't feel good to us anymore, which allows us not to take those new opportunities because we don't have the time anymore to put the attention to where we want to go. And that's what I think keeps us stuck for so long, is just sitting there and like we're looking back too much instead of just, making that choice, making the decision for ourselves, kind of drawing that stake in the ground and saying, this is what I'm going to do moving forward. This is what I'm going to be known for now. I used to do this. And if somebody comes to you, letting them know, like, thank you so much for trusting me, that you want to work with me. I'm so sorry, I actually don't do this anymore, but let me refer you to somebody who does. Or if you ever want to go this direction, like I'm doing this now, like if this is in alignment with where you're going, but taking that stand and letting people know, like, this is what I'm known for now, and this is what I do. And this is why, like, and people feel that passion, I think, from you too. And they're also going to feel that little less passionate if you say yes to them when it's something you don't want to do anymore, like the client relationship might not go as well because they're going to feel that energy that you have, that you don't want to be there anymore. It's like when at least I'll speak for myself. It's like when I worked in retail management and I loved parts of my job, but I didn't love so much about it, like the hours and the amount of time I was away from my family. Like it showed up at work. I can guarantee you if I went back and like really looked at the situation, like I probably wasn't showing up as my best anymore. I didn't want to be there anymore. My heart wasn't there. I was like eyeballing this new venture that I didn't even know at the time was going to be business coaching, but I knew there was something else out there. I knew there was something more for me. I knew I could find a business that I could be home with my kids and not like miss everything or feel so tired because of my floppy schedule as in retail management, like working different shifts all the time. Like I never felt like I was completely there. So I, for sure, if I wasn't who I wanted to be at home, I definitely wasn't being who I wanted to be at work either. But when you take that, like when you claim it and you quit your job and you go all in, or if you pivot your business, like that's when things can really take off because that's where your heart and your attention is focused at.
Yeah. And your energy, I mean, being mindful of your energy, because a lot of the times you push yourselves through things because we think we need to follow through, or we're just in kind of a pushing society. Like you just like keep on going, drink another cup of coffee and keep on going. But, but like knowing but knowing the difference between like, there's times that there's not every aspect of my business that I love, like some of the admin work, or like doing my budget or like things like that. It's not like right up my alley, but that's part of the business. But I'm talking about like the main chunk of what you do and the way you work with people. And like, does it fill your cup? And does it feel like energizing versus does it feel like it's draining? And so that's been that for me too. And to be like wise enough and to slow down enough to know and discern the difference between that. Because I can go, like if you were like to say you had to work that retail job and know that you're going to do that for the next, week straight versus doing like working with business clients for a week straight. What you ending the week is going to be completely different.
Oh, absolutely. One would have me on a high, right? Like doing what I love, where the other one I'd be exhausted and drained and grumpy.
Right.
In a hot mess. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I told my husband, he was worried. I lead yoga retreats too. So it was like a 3-day weekend and I was the only teacher and I was super excited about it. And I always used to joke, like I didn't plan my wedding. I planned my yoga retreats. That's always what I knew I was going to do. And I was so excited to do it. And so we had like, there was like 10 plus women that were there, and I brought all the meals and all the stuff. And I didn't skip a beat. I thought I was probably going to be tired because I'm an introvert. So when I'm out and around people for that long, like usually I get a little drained, but I came home from the weekend, like I had just slept like every night, like so great. Like I went on my own retreat. So I knew like 100% that's exactly what I should be doing. And that's what I would recommend for everybody that's listening, is to really tap into like, do you feel that way?
Yeah. Because it's so like you're able to show up and do work that you love, and that energizes you. It fills your soul. It fills your heart. It feels like it tips over to your family and to your spouses and to your kids and like to your friends. Like that energy flows over and it fills up that cup, like you were saying, like to a whole nother level than you can if you're doing something that doesn't light you up and doesn't excite you.
Right.
So if you were to give like one big tip or nugget for what you feel has been part of like your success, if you were speaking maybe to like somebody who's brand new in business, a lot of people that listen to the podcast are thinking about starting businesses, or they're in the earlier stages sometimes, what's like that one thing that you wish you would have known, or that has brought you to where you're at today?
That it's a long game. Like it's not going to happen overnight, and to be patient with yourself and to be consistent. Just keep showing up and keep tuning in. And like I see growing a business and having your own business as like a spiritual evolution. Like you're growing and you're growing, you're asked to be expanded, and you're going to be pushed up against edges. Like this was also something that I was like surprised about with your business. You're like, I have this thing, I want to sell it. But especially if your business is an extension of your heart. Like it's really part of you. And so like you're kind of putting yourself out there. And so I think just going in, like knowing that's there versus like being surprised by it can be, and be excited about like, oh, let's see how this goes. Like, let's see like how I'm going to be pushed to my edge, and how I can grow and keep expanding, keep learning, and understand that there's plenty of time. You have what you need. Like you are enough, and just keep doing the good work and keep leading with your heart, because your enthusiasm will be infectious.
Yes.
And so just keep really tapping in with yourself and making sure that you're still really aligned and that you're happy and joyful in the work that you're doing. And then keep loving up on your people.
Love it. Yeah.
That's more than one thing, but
no, that's perfect. More than one's fine. All right. As we kind of start to wrap up the interview today, I always have a couple questions I like to ask all my guests at the end, kind of rapid fire. So we'll go through them really quickly. But do you have a morning routine? And if so, what are a couple pieces to it?
Okay. So I've been, for the last probably 6 months, I've been journaling my dreams. So I put the intention of like, I wasn't remembering my dreams. And so it's like, okay, I'm going to remember my dreams. So I get up and I journal if the dreams, sometimes they come, sometimes they don't. And then I write that down, and then whatever particular season or phase I am in my life, I look at that dream and say, well, what was the main emotion of that dream? And then instead of trying to interpret the dream, I just say, okay, what was like the emotion that was invoked, and what is that trying to tell me about this current phase of my life? And that usually just starts like some writing and some journaling. So I get up before my son, he's almost 3. And so I make sure to get up a half an hour or so before him. And so I sit outside, I have a cup of coffee, I journal, and then I meditate. I sit for a little bit.
I'm going to have to try that one. That's actually, I do a lot of journaling, but I've never thought to like journal on my dreams before. I feel like I don't always remember my dreams, which might be part of the problem, but maybe if I'm like consciously more aware that I'm like looking to see what those dreams were, it'd be interesting to see what would come up. So thanks for sharing that. I'm going to try that for sure.
I've never done it before. I remember my dreams, but I never had spent a practice doing it. So it's just been really interesting to see. And I'd love to hear from you if you say, okay, I'm going to remember my dreams. See, even if it's just bits and pieces, or one animal or one person, or it's really interesting. And sometimes I only attach to the emotion of it too, which is also kind of cool.
Yeah. Like I can't think of any dreams right this second, but I know that there's some mornings where I wake up and I'm like, oh, I had the craziest dream, like, and I'll remember like little teeny pieces to it. So that'll be interesting to see if I can journal on it. I'll try that out. Yeah. And then who has been the biggest influence in your life?
Gosh. So many things. I mean, there's a lot of people that are popping in my head. Like I'm a big family person, but I mean, so right now, I mean, the person that's popping into my head is my grandpa, who's going to be turning 90. And he's just got such a like positive heart and positive mindset. And he's a really hard worker, and he works hard and plays hard. So even at 90, he's like joking, and he just doesn't take life too seriously. And I think that's probably why he's 90. And he acts like, oh my, he's just such a kid at heart. So it's beautiful to be able to have him in my life, and then to see his take and his perspective on life, and knowing that that's possible even as like you age. Like you don't have to like just let the weight of adulthood come on you, and like responsibilities and obligations, that you can still stay really spirited. And so I strive toward that for sure.
I love that. My grandfather is like probably one of my favorite people in the whole wide world too. So I can totally relate to that. And he's no longer with us, but he lived to 92, and he was like that same thing. Like everything was a joke. Everything was like, he was trying to make people laugh, trying to entertain, like, and he played on all those emotions all the time. So
yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. You almost got me to cry. I'm like, I don't know. I'm a big crier.
Yeah.
Like,
grandpas are like legit my favorite people in the whole wide world. So all right.
Special.
So if you needed a place to go recharge and kind of like reset your happy place, where do you, or if, to reset yourself, like what's your happy place? Where do you like to go, or what do you like to do?
Yes, the ocean. is the easy one for me. Yeah. I mean, ideally I'd go back to Maya Tulum, which was the most beautiful. It was just a really beautiful, serene setting. But we also have my family has a condo in near Wilmington, North Carolina. So we're only about a 4-hour drive from there now. And
Nice.
so just going, and it's right on the water. So just sitting outside and just kind of taking in the sound and the smell and all the sparkling of the sun on the waves is really calming, and it just brings me home and just reminds me, that everything's okay.
Yes. It's my happy spot too. We should just go to the beach. Like, just talking about it, like I could see us sitting on the patio or on the porch at your family's house. We got this.
Yeah, we got it. We could. Oh my gosh, yeah, it's the best.
And then my last question for you, and I know that times are a little bit crazy right now and we can't actually travel really anywhere, but if you were given a ticket to go anywhere in the world today, where would you go?
Oh gosh. Well, Turks and Caicos. I've never been there before, but it's also the beach, and I've heard that it's really beautiful. And I do have a trip planned there, like whenever we can go next.
Whenever.
I'm turning 40 next year, so that's the plan, is to go there. So yes, I think that would be the first.
Yeah.
The first place.
I've never been there either, so it sounds amazing.
And could I bring Jason? I'd love to bring my husband and have somebody watch my little son.
Yes.
And then go and just do a weekend away. Yeah.
I'll give you 2 tickets to this imaginary vacation.
Another wish, please.
Yes. Rub the genie's bottle a little bit more, and we'll get 2 tickets to go. And wait, let's make it 3, because I'm coming too.
Yes. For all of you who have like kids at home, you know what it's
yes.
like I mean, I love my son, but being with them as much as we've been with them is a lot. So
yeah, a little time away would be nice.
Just a weekend.
Yeah.
It'll be good. And
it would be.
to see it. Yeah.
Jackie, it's been so fun having you on the podcast. Tell people where they can connect with you. Like, is there a social media platform you'd like to hang out on, or to your website, or where do you want to send people to?
Yeah. The best place, I mean, I'm on Instagram, so that's where I've been hanging out. Like I said, I took that little hiatus. I'm coming back slowly. But it's just Jackie, I think it's _Dominas.com, or just Jackie Dominas. I think
it'll be in the show notes too. So
thank you.
Just in case.
Yes. And then my website is a great place, JackieDominas.com. So on there's, I have a Calm Your Crazy a packet. It's a toolkit. There's 5 or 6. I keep adding different things to it, but there's a meditation, there's a yoga class on there, there's some mantra work, some breath work, all on there for if you're feeling kind of really stirred up. That's a really great place to go to. And then I do a weekly blog that's always on there.
Great. And I know you had a free special offer for people that listen to the podcast. Do you want to tell everybody what that is?
Yes. So anybody who wants to ask me a question, or if there's something that like perked your interest, and we can set up a 30-minute call, and I'd love to meet you and talk to you and listen to what you're doing about your business and how I can help. So that's what I wanted to offer any of your listeners that would love to hop on the phone or Zoom, most likely with Zoom, so we could see each other and just chat for 30 minutes.
Yeah, such an amazing gift. Thank you so much for offering that to everybody, and take her up on it. Jackie is an amazing person, and you can learn so much within that 30 minutes with her. So Jackie, thank you so much for being on. It's been so fun as always to have you. And yeah, I just appreciate you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been really fun.